Narrator. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast's Intermediate Guide series. Today we're focusing on an indispensable skill for growth and improvement in any setting: asking for and giving constructive feedback. Whether you're a student seeking to improve your writing, a professional aiming to enhance your performance, or simply a friend looking to offer helpful observations, the ability to exchange feedback effectively is paramount. It's about fostering an environment of continuous learning, mutual respect, and genuine support, turning critique into a catalyst for positive change. How do you articulate a request for feedback that encourages honesty and specificity, rather than just vague compliments or criticisms? What language allows you to deliver feedback that is clear, actionable, and focuses on behaviors or outcomes, without making the recipient feel defensive or personally attacked? And crucially, how do you cultivate a mindset that views feedback as a gift for growth, rather than a threat, ensuring that both the giver and receiver engage in this process with openness and a shared commitment to improvement? This episode is designed to equip you with the essential vocabulary, empathetic approaches, and practical insights necessary to approach feedback exchanges with confidence, clarity, and a profound understanding of their transformative power. Today's discussion moves beyond simple praise or blame, delving into the psychology of perception, the art of active listening in a feedback context, and strategies for framing observations effectively. We are privileged to host a conversation between Dr. Lena Petrova, a leading organizational development consultant specializing in performance management at the University of Geneva, Switzerland, and Mr. Alex Kim, an acclaimed executive coach and author of The Feedback Loop, who runs his practice from his office in Seoul, South Korea. Their dialogue will illuminate the best practices and common pitfalls in asking for and giving constructive feedback, offering you a richer understanding of how to turn every feedback interaction into a valuable opportunity for learning and development. So, let's explore the intricacies and collaborative potential of truly mastering the art of constructive feedback. Lena, Alex, it's a genuine pleasure to finally connect with you. Your work as an executive coach must constantly involve navigating feedback sessions. From your perspective, when someone is preparing to ask for constructive feedback, what are your initial, most crucial considerations for them to keep in mind? Is it about immediately listing their weaknesses, or is there a preliminary step of defining their focus? Alex, Lena, the pleasure is entirely mutual. Your insights into organizational development are so vital to creating a culture where feedback thrives. When someone is preparing to ask for constructive feedback, my initial consideration is always a preliminary step of defining their focus, rather than immediately listing perceived weaknesses. It's crucial for them to first identify what specific area or behavior they want feedback on. General questions like, "How did I do?" often yield vague responses. Instead, they should ask, "What could I have done differently during the presentation's opening?" Or, "What's one suggestion you have for improving my communication in team meetings?" This focused approach allows the giver to provide more targeted and actionable insights. My foundational groundwork always involves encouraging individuals to think about their feedback-hungry areas. Do you find that a lack of specific inquiry is a common pitfall leading to unhelpful feedback? Lena, absolutely, Alex. Your emphasis on defining a specific focus and identifying feedback-hungry areas is unequivocally fundamental. A lack of specific inquiry is indeed one of the most common and detrimental pitfalls, often leading to generic praise, vague criticisms, or feedback that isn't relevant to the receiver's goals. Without that targeted question, the feedback loop remains incomplete or ineffective. My research shows that clearly articulated questions for feedback significantly increase both the quality and utility of the responses received. What specific linguistic strategies do you employ to deliver constructive feedback that is clear, actionable, and focuses on behaviors or outcomes, without making the recipient feel defensive or personally attacked? Alex, that's where behavioral specificity, I statements, and focusing on impact become paramount, Lena. My primary strategy for delivering constructive feedback involves describing observable actions rather than making judgments about personality or intent. Instead of saying, "You're disorganized," I'd articulate, "During the team meeting when you presented the sales figures, I noticed that the slides were out of order, which made it difficult to follow the narrative." I consistently use I statements to own my observation and its impact on me, I felt a bit confused when the project timeline shifted without prior notice. Most importantly, I focus on the impact of the behavior rather than simply the behavior itself. The impact of that delay was that our client felt frustrated because they weren't informed quickly enough. I also offer suggestions as possibilities, not commands. Perhaps next time, sending a quick update email could help manage expectations. Do you find that a tendency to sugarcoat or avoid difficult feedback altogether is a common issue? Lena: That's an excellent approach, Alex, and your use of behavioral specificity, I statements, and focusing on impact is precisely what transforms criticism into constructive input. And yes, a tendency to sugarcoat or avoid difficult feedback altogether is a very common issue, often driven by a fear of causing offense or discomfort. Paradoxically, this avoidance stifles growth and can lead to recurring problems. My research suggests that while delivering difficult feedback requires courage, framing it with care and clear intent makes it far more digestible and valuable. What role does active listening and empathy play when receiving constructive feedback? And how do you verbally demonstrate that you're open to the input, even if it's challenging? Alex: Active listening and empathy are the cornerstones of effectively receiving constructive feedback, Lena. Without them, the feedback, no matter how well delivered, can be lost or misunderstood. I verbally demonstrate openness by first resisting the urge to immediately explain or defend myself. Instead, I make eye contact, nod, and use verbal affirmations like, "I hear what you're saying," or, "Thank you for sharing that." I often paraphrase what I've heard to confirm understanding. So, if I'm understanding correctly, you're suggesting that by preemptively communicating potential delays, I could improve client satisfaction? I ask clarifying questions that focus on behavior and solutions. Can you give me a specific example of when that happened? Or what specifically could I have done differently in that situation? This shows I'm engaged in understanding, not just reacting. My goal is always to create a safe space for the feedback giver, ensuring they feel heard and that their input is valued. How do you approach the challenge of following up on feedback that has been given or received, ensuring it leads to actual improvement and not just a one-off conversation? Lena: Alex, your emphasis on active listening, paraphrasing, and asking clarifying questions when receiving feedback is invaluable for genuine understanding. The challenge of following up on feedback is crucial for translating insights into sustained improvement, preventing it from being just a one-off conversation. My approach involves setting clear expectations, creating an action plan, and scheduling check-ins. When giving feedback, I ask the recipient to summarize their understanding and identify 1 or 2 specific actions they will take based on the discussion. Based on our conversation, what's one key takeaway or action you plan to implement? This fosters ownership. For myself, when receiving feedback, I articulate what steps I'll take and then proactively schedule a follow-up conversation. "Thank you for that feedback. I'm going to focus on specific action over the next week. Would it be okay if I checked in with you next Tuesday to see if you're noticing any difference?" This demonstrates commitment and accountability. It transforms feedback from an event into a continuous loop of development. What are the common pitfalls individuals fall into when asking for or giving constructive feedback, and how can they be avoided? Alex: Lena, your strategy of creating action plans and scheduling check-ins is incredibly effective for ensuring feedback leads to tangible growth. The common pitfalls individuals fall into when asking for or giving constructive feedback often include being too vague or generic, leading to unhelpful or unactionable insights. Another pitfall is delivering feedback as a personal attack, using "you" statements that sound accusatory or judgmental. Delaying feedback until it's too late or until resentment has built up is also common, making the conversation more emotionally charged. Some might engage in the feedback sandwich poorly, where genuine critique is buried between insincere compliments, making the whole message feel disingenuous. There's also the pitfall of focusing only on negatives, neglecting to acknowledge strengths or positive contributions, which can demotivate the recipient. Lastly, not being prepared for defensiveness from the receiver and reacting poorly when it occurs can shut down the conversation. To avoid these, individuals should be specific and behavioral in their observations. They should use "I" statements and focus on the impact, not the person. They should deliver feedback timely and regularly. They should be authentic in their praise and critique, avoiding the disingenuous sandwich method. They should balance positive observations with areas for growth. And crucially, they should anticipate potential emotional responses and prepare to listen empathetically. How do you believe the shift towards more remote work environments impacts the dynamics of asking for and giving constructive feedback, for better or worse? Lena. Alex, your comprehensive list of pitfalls and proactive avoidance strategies is exceptionally valuable for navigating feedback sessions effectively. The shift towards more remote work environments certainly has a complex and often challenging impact on the dynamics of asking for and giving constructive feedback. On one hand, it can offer a perceived benefit of allowing for written feedback, which can be more thoughtfully composed and less susceptible to immediate emotional reactions. It also potentially makes it easier to schedule one-on-one virtual sessions. However, the worse side is significant. Remote work lacks crucial nonverbal cues, body language, tone nuances, that are vital for conveying empathy, sincerity, and the true intent behind feedback. This absence can lead to misinterpretation of messages, especially constructive criticism, making it sound harsher or more critical than intended. The casual nature of instant messaging can also lead to impulsive or less carefully considered feedback. Building trust, which is foundational for effective feedback, can be harder in a purely virtual setting without the informal interactions of an office. So, while convenient, remote environments demand greater intentionality, clarity, and often more explicit empathy in feedback exchanges to compensate for the missing nonverbal richness. In your final analysis, what are the ultimate rewards or transformations that an individual gains from truly mastering the art of asking for and giving constructive feedback effectively? Alex. Lena, your astute analysis of remote work's impact, particularly the loss of nonverbal cues and the demand for greater intentionality, perfectly captures the modern workplace challenge. The ultimate rewards or transformations that an individual gains from truly mastering the art of asking for and giving constructive feedback effectively are manifold and deeply transformative. It cultivates significantly accelerated personal and professional growth, as they continuously learn from their experiences and the insights of others. This leads to enhanced performance and achievement in their roles, as they efficiently identify areas for improvement and implement effective changes. A proficient individual gains stronger, more authentic relationships built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect, as feedback becomes a tool for connection rather than conflict. It fosters a powerful sense of self-awareness and self-efficacy, knowing they can both deliver difficult truths with grace and receive them for their own betterment. Beyond the individual, it contributes to a culture of continuous learning and high performance within teams and organizations. Perhaps most profoundly, mastering this art transforms the perception of critique itself, from something to be feared or avoided, to an invaluable gift for development, leading to greater resilience, adaptability, and a proactive approach to all aspects of life. It's the difference between stagnant potential and dynamic, ongoing evolution. Narrator. What an exceptionally illuminating and practical conversation with Dr. Lena Petrova and Mr. Alex Kim. Their expert insights have masterfully illuminated the critical nuances involved in asking for and giving constructive feedback, from the importance of specific inquiry and behavioral focus to active listening and navigating the complexities of remote communication. Their dialogue powerfully underscores that effective feedback is not just a polite exchange, but a strategic tool for personal and collective growth, building trust and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Now, let's consolidate some of the key vocabulary and concepts from their rich dialogue that you can integrate into your own feedback practices. Practice session. Expressing yourself. Let's revisit some valuable phrases and concepts from today's in-depth episode. Practice using these in your own feedback discussions. Preliminary step of defining their focus. An initial stage of identifying what specific area of feedback is needed. Unequivocally fundamental. Absolutely essential or crucial. Behavioral specificity. Describing observable actions rather than making judgments. I statements. Phrasing your observations using I noticed or I felt to own your perspective. Focusing on impact. Describing the consequences or effects of a behavior. Cornerstones of effectively receiving constructive feedback. The most important principles for taking feedback well. Resisting the urge to immediately explain or defend myself. Holding back from justifying your actions when receiving feedback. Setting clear expectations, creating an action plan, and scheduling check-ins. A structured approach to following up on feedback. Complex and often challenging impact. An effect that is complicated and often difficult. Manifold and deeply transformative. Many and having a very profound and positive changing effect. Choose 3 of these phrases and explain how you might use them when asking for or giving feedback. For example, when I'm about to ask my manager for feedback, I always take a preliminary step of defining my focus first, as that is unequivocally fundamental to getting useful advice. When giving feedback, I try to use behavioral specificity and I statements to describe what happened, and then focus on the impact it had, rather than making it personal. I've learned that resisting the urge to immediately explain or defend myself is one of the cornerstones of effectively receiving constructive feedback, especially with the complex and often challenging impact of remote communication. Narrator. As Dr. Lena Petrova and Mr. Alex Kim so eloquently articulated, mastering the art of asking for and giving constructive feedback is a skill that empowers you to drive your own growth and contribute positively to the development of others. It's about approaching interactions with clarity, empathy, and a shared commitment to excellence. By embracing strategic questioning, precise language, and a mindset of continuous improvement, you can transform every feedback exchange into a powerful catalyst for learning and success. Until our next insightful discussion on the English Learning Podcast, keep learning, keep growing, and keep providing invaluable insights.